like, for example, like if you love reading books, let's say you love reading business books or whatever, right? Or, it doesn't have to, it can be like fiction books or whatever, but you can still really get into these niche communities and figure out what is missing. And so you can go to that community and do a little bit of research. Like, okay, what are people asking for? Like, what do they want? And then once you have that, you can like kind of build a solution for them and see if people would actually buy it.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Life Inner Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live awesome lives. I am joined by Polish Peter, the co-host of the Life Inner Show. Peter, we have an awesome episode today, man.
Yeah, we do. And it's a really cool, interesting episode because of the fact that this is showing a journey for someone who has like a W-2 to starting something on their own, being an entrepreneur, how you transition from that. And especially when you have people talking and saying, well, are you sure you're doing this right? Why would you do that? Why would you leave, right? Because he was working for a pretty, good company, I think, and especially, I think, very successful company.
Dude, this episode, I feel like has more nuggets in one particular episode than I can remember in a long, long time. We're speaking with Yong-Soo Chung, and he started off as a software engineer with Ripple, right? The crypto company. Mm-hmm. Went off and started a couple different businesses, but there's so many lessons in here. He's in San Fran, he's in Silicon Valley, and we have so many awesome topics we're getting into here, and that I think our listeners are going to love it. So whether you're leaving your job, whether you've left your job, if you're in business for yourself, whether you are someone who you find yourself being challenged as to whether you are doing the right things and making the right decisions, and have you given your business enough time, and should you share your values in your business, and what's the effect of that? I mean, so many different things are covered in this episode, dude. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I said we go right into it. Break out the notebook and start taking notes.
Yeah. This is a note taker. Let's go right now to our interview with Yong-Soo Chung. Yong-Soo, what's up, man? Welcome to the Life Inner Show.
Hey, Jason, how are you? I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, I'm excited, man. I read your story, and it is super cool. And I think it's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners because, a lot of our people at one point had that job and they went into business for themselves. Now, I really enjoy your particular, the niche in the industry and how you transitioned out of this and you found your talents and your passions, and you converted it into something that you love that also makes money. And does quite well. But unpack. Let's rewind a little bit here. You founded Urban EDC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what is an e-commerce brand? What does that mean?
An e-commerce brand essentially is you're serving your target audience through physical products, and mostly online, I would say, and usually direct to consumer. And so essentially an e-commerce brand, you're trying to find out a customer's problems. Usually it's not something that's, it's not like a coaching program or anything like that. It's more of like I really want that, or I need that product. It's like a physical product, and you're serving them in that capacity. And, and it's actually a very, very interesting question, actually, because, I started a podcast too recently, and it's a very different way of looking at it because a physical product is about that physical product. And so when you get customer support inquiries, it's actually, it's going to be about that specific thing. But then when you have like a coaching business or something like that, then it's like a lot more personal. And so that's a very interesting distinction that you brought up, actually.
Is that so? I'm curious, man. But even before you started that business, you were an engineer. Is that correct?
I was, engineer. I was a software engineer for a cryptocurrency company. this is back in March 2014 is when I joined this company. And this was before Ethereum. And actually, Vitalik walked through offices. I met Vitalik, and this is before Ethereum even launched. And so I was pretty early on in this space.
And so that sounds like, first of all, this is like you were like it must have been like the Wild West back then, because it was such an unknown thing. Like it hasn't. I mean, that's in its infancy. What made you decide you wanted to leave that job and go into business for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I didn't know that the industry would blow up to be what it is today. It was a very different time back then when it was kind of more like, people were experimenting, but, it wasn't, it wasn't as big and it wasn't on the radar of like globally, And so, going back in time, I think that, it was, I knew the industry it was a promising industry, but I didn't know that it was going to be what it is. And so, when I left in September 2015, so I was there for a year and a half. And, right around the time I left, the regulation stuff started happening. So the company that I was at, it's called Ripple, and they had a lot of, compliance issues with, FinCEN, which is what, that was, the FinCEN stuff is all taken care of, but obviously there's other challenges even today with regulatory clarity and all this stuff. But right when I was leaving, that's when all the regulation stuff started happening, and it made me feel very restricted. Like our team was just rolling along, and we actually got it to a point where we were starting to move actual money across the blockchain, and it was a really cool feeling because the company up until that point, it was mostly just about concepts and, theoretical ideas and things like that. And we were actually like the front line of like, all right, no, we're moving value across the blockchain. Like this is happening. And then right when that happened, the compliance team, they told that, I love our compliance officer at the time. She's amazing, but she basically said, hey guys, like we need to figure out our plan here because we don't know what's going to be happening with regulatory issues. So like put on the brakes, like let's take this a little bit slower. And so that's when we found out. I mean, that's basically when I decided, okay, this is not for me because, I'm someone that always needs to kind of continue to make progress. Like I need to see progress. And when that happened, I knew that my days there were numbered. And at the time it was just kind of like, should I leave now or should I stick it out and, get more, each month you get more equity in this company. But I ultimately decided to move on. And, I could always go back in hindsight, and think about it. But I think I really feel good about the development and how the last 8 years have really changed who I am as a person. And I guess one more note is like, I don't really want to be known as the person that got into crypto early and like made my like money or whatever in crypto. And like, I don't want to be that to be my legacy. And so I think it's good that I exited and kind of started on my own. And now, when I look back 10, 20 years from now, I can be like, okay, I built this company from scratch. Like that is my kind of like my legacy. It's not like, oh, I got in early in crypto and made money,
So that's interesting, man. So you really, it's not like, so what I'm hearing is like, you kind of wanted to earn it and you wanted to,
yes.
You wanted to be, because otherwise I just got in early. It was just timing. Like, and I just made all this money. Like that wasn't fulfilling to you. Like you wanted to prove that you could do it, not like just got lucky with being in early.
Yeah. And this is a really, really interesting point because I look deep down inside myself and ultimately I said, okay, I said, if I made all the money that I needed for the rest of my life and decided to retire right now, like, how would I feel? Like, would I feel fulfilled in a way that would make myself proud or make my, future children proud? Or, it's not something that where I feel like I'm like, okay, like I made my money in crypto and I got out and I got lucky and timing was perfect. Like, I don't know, that doesn't feel right to me. And
Man,
so, yeah.
So interesting, man, because like, I think some people would take that quick win, but then I think you're right. They probably struggle with like, well, now what? Like, I didn't, it's kind of like, I mean, yeah, you can get an inheritance from somebody and get all his money, but like, how do you feel like about yourself? And like, are you, you didn't earn it, right? So it's kind of like, it's like empty riches kind of a little bit. I mean, it'd be cool, I guess, on one hand, but it also I could see how it could be self-defeating, and you might feel like, well, gosh, like, I guess you could feel a lot better when you did it yourself. So I think that speaks a lot to your character, actually, man.
Yeah, no, I heard some stories, and there's like one particular guy that I'm thinking about who was like an early Facebook employee. He was like an intern. He was like the first intern at Facebook. And he made millions off of the IPO, right? The Facebook IPO. But he is so like unfulfilled. And so he's like trying to start companies. And this guy has like in the 100 million range, right? And yeah, like I look back on that and I'm like, okay, yeah, like, it's not like you want to feel like you actually earn that money. It's not like, if you get lucky, then people are going to they're not going to respect you. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be like, oh yeah, that guy just got lucky. Like, he's nothing. Right. So I think that it's important that you feel like you actually earned it versus just getting lucky.
Wow, man. Yeah. I think that's really important. That's awesome, man. I don't think we've ever heard somebody say that on the show before, but it makes so much sense. And so what was that like when you made the jump from Ripple? Like, did you have a plan? Did you have savings? Did you have a parachute, or did you just jump and you're like, I'll figure it out? Like, what did that and what was it like? Like, were you scared? Were you like what were the emotions that you're experiencing?
Yeah. So I started probably a little before I left, maybe 2-3 months before I started building an audience. I started dabbling in a few things here and there. And so when I did have some savings left, probably like about 6 months runway. And I just felt like I wanted to put that pressure on myself and bet on myself to make this happen. And so I know a lot of people, this is a very like, I guess, it really depends on the type of person you are. So I would really urge people, if they're thinking about jumping off and starting their own thing, but like really unsure and not really feeling secure financially, then they definitely save up money and like start something. But then what I found is like, if you're doing the side hustle and you're on that path for like a long time, like a year or 2 years, like in my opinion, it almost holds you back when you don't have that kind of pressure to like push yourself forward. Because if you're just like doing it like maybe 30 minutes each day, whatever, like just, I mean, like at one point are you going to commit and say, all right, this is my full-time thing? And like a lot of people, in my opinion, hold on to their identity a little too long. And so what I mean by that is like, when I was at Ripple and I was leaving, I was like a blockchain software engineer and people thought I was crazy, right? I mean, I literally went from software engineer at a cryptocurrency company to, selling little like pens and trinkets and pocket knives online. Like you don't make that jump, especially where I am, which is in San Francisco. And people really thought I was, kind of a crazy dude, right?
Like you're nuts. Yeah. Like, what is he doing? What are you,
yeah.
Crazy.
And so I think that is what holds, I would say like 90% of people back, is like their mentality and their identity of holding on to something that they want to be like, they want to be known as like, oh, he's a software engineer at this company, or, it's like one of those like social things where, you feel comfort and you feel good about yourself when you're like, at a position that's reputable company and reputable position. But like when you first start, I mean, you're not going to have anything. Like you're going to have nothing, and you got to build that up from scratch. And like now my friends, when with my colleagues, when I talk about me, they're like, wow, like, can you believe like he's built this company? Like that's identity that I've formed now over the last 8 years. But that doesn't happen overnight, and you have to shed that initial identity. And I feel like when you're starting a side hustle, like, yeah, sure, start the side hustle in terms of like the financial means, but then at what point are you going to make that full-time jump? And at that point, it's going to be like, you're going to have to go through the whole like, all right, I'm no longer this person that I used to be. All my friends and colleagues are going to look funny at me and like probably judge me and talk behind my back, and that's like perfectly fine. And like, that's normal. Like you have to get through that stage. And I feel like a lot of people make the excuse of like, oh, I'm going to just do the side hustle for a while. Just so they can feel comfort in that, like they're not going to be judged. But really, you got to get through that judgment to step into the other side, you know? So
did you struggle with that, or was it easy for you? Like, cause I can imagine, like, especially being in San Fran, like everybody is like, you know, very like, and not, listen, I'm speaking a little bit. Yeah. I'm out of ignorance a little bit here, but I'm assuming everybody's like, you know, they're engineers, they're venture capitalists, they're like, and so did you struggle with that? How was that?
Yeah, I mean, it was, so it's like a double-sided situation, because a lot of people here in San Francisco are kind of free thinkers, and they do start a lot of random businesses. Like they pursue passion. Like that's kind of encouraged in this area. So that's like a good thing.
Mm.
But at the same time, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's literally like, you know, I'm going from being in a position where people would love to be in my position. Like literally, like I'm a software engineer at one of the hottest Silicon Valley startups, and leaving that is a very weird and interesting dilemma here that I had. So it was tough. It was definitely surprising for a lot of my group of friends. But I think overall they're like, oh, like good for him. Like, you know, he's kind of doing his own thing now. But I have a feeling probably in the back of their mind, th're like, oh man, like is he going to survive this?
A little concerned.
Yeah.
Now, were you married to Sandy yet?
We were dating at the time.
What did she think, man? She's like, oh, was she like nuts, or was she supportive? Like, what? Because that's another consideration too. Like if you have a spouse or a significant other.
Yeah, she was generally supportive. She knew that this is something I really wanted to do. And, you know, what was challenging is when I started the business, like I was working all the time. Like it was Friday nights I was working on, you know, whatever, writing up the product descriptions for the website and things like that. And it was challenging, especially because we had just started dating. And so it's not like we were like, you know, already like pretty established relationship. It's early on in our relationship. And so, it was definitely challenging. But yeah, I mean, actually what happened was we brought home a French bulldog in 2017, and, he gained a large following on Instagram. And so she actually started her own business in 2018. And so when she started her business, she was like, okay, you know what? Like, you're right. You know, everything that I understand how you feel about this now. Like she's working constantly and like just odd hours of the day. And like, she finally understood like what I was feeling. And so we kind of bonded over that. So the first couple of years was kind of tough, but then, when she started her business, it was kind of like, okay, now we're kind of on the equal path now.
Speak the same language. Yeah. Man. So then you went from Urban EDC to another business, GrowthJet.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, and what made you take that leap?
Yeah, so GrowthJet's an interesting path. So when I was doing shipping, or I guess running Urban EDC, and the shipping part was a big pain point for us because, you know, I'd done all the research, and I did, you know, I looked at all the third-party logistics companies, 3PLs, and the one that really was the best one was the one that I went with. But then what I realized quickly is that the level of service was so low. I mean, literally, I was trying to call someone from that company, and the voicemail box would be full, like every single time. Like it's just like impossible to get a hold of somebody. And then not only that, but there's a lot of issues. Like for example, they would ship out. Like I got an email from a customer saying, "Hey, is this a joke? Like I got an empty box. Like open the box and the box is empty." And I was like, "How could that be?" And so it turns out that one of the people that were, you know, packing my box had pocketed the actual item and then shipped out an empty box to the customer. Like things like that,
man.
Things like that. So I was like, all right, this is like you know, this is a good learning experience. But I need to take everything in house, and we started shipping everything in house, and then we got we were getting asked by a lot of our colleagues, like, "Hey, who's doing your fulfillment?" Because my fulfillment is also really not a great experience. And so we actually had paying customers before we even had a website or a name for a company. And so at that point, we're like, all right, we got something here. Like, let's make this an official company. And so that's how Growth Shit was born.
Hey guys, we get right back to our episode, but there's something really important I want to tell you about. And that is this. You don't have to choose between having a great life and a great business. You can have both. We have 2 different events, in fact, to help you do just that. Our Get a Life Getaway is our proven process. We've been doing this for just about 15 years now of walking you through the process of creating your own personal life vision, your life and your vision for the ideal life that you want to live. And by the way, this isn't pie in the sky approach to living. This is a tangible, strategic way to really figure out exactly what you have to do and what things have to be in place for you to live that vision, and so that you can make this a reality. Now, the second part of that component is, the second part of the formula is the Business Builder Workshop. So this is where now finally you can have a business that doesn't absolutely destroy your life, and you can make the money you want in the amount of time you want. You can have fun. It can fulfill vision element items. You can remove yourself from the day-to-day and the minutia, so you're only doing the things that are most enjoyable to you and that you're best at, right? Can you imagine what that'd be like to get to enjoy and wake up every day loving what you get to do in your business and making money hand over fist? Like, that's just an amazing combination. So I want to encourage you to go to the Get a Life Getaway and the Business Builder Workshop, because they're really a 1-2 punch combination to help you get the ideal life and business that you dream about. Now, here's the even cooler part, Peter. We have a very special promo for them. Tell them about that.
Well, because you guys are a loyal listener, because you're listening to our podcast and listen to my English and his English all the time, here's what we have for you guys. Head over to lifeontheearth.com, click on the events tab at the top of the page, pick the event that you want to go to, go to the checkout page, and in the promo code area, type in podcast, 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 hit apply, and guess what you're going to get? You're going to get 50% off. That's 50% off the ticket price, the regular ticket price that majority of the people out there who don't listen to our podcast don't know about it yet get to pay, but you get to pay only 50% off. So head over there right now, get to this event, and I can't wait to meet you. Come up to us, say hi to us, introduce yourself, tell us you found us on the podcast. We would love to talk to you and show you how this vision process really creates miracles in people's lives.
Man, one last thing is, I don't know when you're listening to this episode right now, but I don't know how long we're going to keep this discount up. I don't know how long this promotion will be valid. So go and do it right now to make sure you get that 50% savings. We'll see you at an event soon. Let's get back to the episode. Dude, and so you saw an opportunity that was not being addressed in the marketplace, and then realized, I guess, how you could fix it or make it better. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. And so, we saw an opportunity and thought, we could definitely do this better. And like, it's crazy that the highest rated 3PL was the bar was so low that it was like, all right, like something is off here. And so we just came right in and kind of filled that market.
And just for my own clarity here, is third-party logistics only refer to ship? Is it like just packing and shipping? Is that essentially the entire role of the business?
Yeah. So e-commerce, so, you have to store your item somewhere, typically like a warehouse. Too. Yeah. Storage. So, a lot of the brands that we work with, they bring in pallets worth of inventory to our warehouse. And we have our staff, our team kind of like managing the orders that come in, and then we'll go around and pick the items into a cart and then eventually just ship them out using, whatever shipping method either the customer chooses or, whatever they have set for the shipping method. And so, so that's kind of the last part of the customer journey, which is, all right, the order's in the system. How do we get it out, actually shipped out to the customer?
I'm fascinated by that business, by the way, especially as it relates to, so my wife has I hope she's not listening, has an, let's say a proclivity for Amazon. And even last night I was ordering some protein and it said, this is like midnight. I'm ordering protein. It says, we'll be here tomorrow between 7 a.m. and 11. I'm like, what in the world? Like, how can these companies, and I don't know if it's just Amazon that can do this, but it seems like that is such an important industry. Like, because people want things now. They want it. Yeah, they want it 5 minutes before I even ordered it. Right? Like,
and they're shipping it to you for free. I mean, like in today's world, like you sometimes think like, how the heck do they actually do it? So
Oh man.
roll in those costs and everything, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating space, and it's evolving very quickly as well. And so it's interesting to be in it, and kind of just seeing what's going on around it, and trying to like essentially like merge what's the trend, the upcoming trend, but also making sure that we stay true to our values.
Yeah, man. Now, are both businesses still running, or did you close down Urban EDC when you opened up Growth Jet?
No, it's still running. So we haven't closed down any other business. And so we do have that other, so we have a dog business too that my wife runs. It's called Spotted by Humphrey. And so that's a dog boutique shop. And so basically what happened was Urban EDC and Spotted by Humphrey, we were doing the fulfillment on our own. And then we had people coming asking us about fulfillment. And then we started, so essentially Urban EDC and Spotted by Humphrey are internal clients of Growth Jet.
That's also a pretty cool model where you can have one business kind of support the other ones, like in a that's a very interesting model. Now, did you choose these businesses based on like, so for instance, like Urban EDC? Did you have a passion for this? Did you see a need for it? Did you just think it had an easy barrier to entry? And like, how did you choose? Like, I can kind of see where you chose Growth Jet because there was a need.
Yeah.
But your e-commerce company, what made you choose that specific industry or that niche?
Yeah. So when I was leading Ripple, I did a bunch of just self-reflection exercises, and I realized that something that I do often is just look at these tiny things like titanium pens, for example. Like, I don't know why, but at the time I was obsessed with these like well-machined pocket items. And I realized that it all kind of fell into this one category called everyday carry. And so when that happened, I was like, all right, maybe there's something here. So what I actually did was I bought a bunch of stuff from Amazon and then resold them for no profit, but just to validate that this shop would actually, people would actually want something like this, like a shop that's dedicated to everyday carry, because there wasn't anything like it before. And people started buying it, and I started getting feedback on it, and we iterated from that, and it just grew into what it is today. So
that's interesting, man. Talk to me a little bit more about that process of kind of looking around you and observing. And because what I hear from you, and we haven't had a long time to talk, but it seems like your brain works in a way that you're looking for, and maybe this is deliberate, maybe it's just unintentional, but you kind of notice these opportunities and these things, and you kind of start to dig and do some research. Would you say that's something that comes naturally to you, or do you actively think this way?
I think it's a combination. So I think that there is something about just intuition and knowing what is coming next. So for example, like e-commerce was pretty hot at the time, but most of it was Amazon FBA. Like that was like the big thing. But then when I started Urban EDC, people were just starting to talk about, okay, no, you need to build your own brand. You can't rely on Amazon. Like they can just shut you down at any point, like all this stuff. So I wanted to build a brand on my own website, not on Amazon. And so I think that shift, I just kind of saw that happening, and I felt like that was an important kind of now every brand has their own website. Like I feel like you can't really build a business on Amazon FBA alone. And so I just kind of saw that coming, and I don't know. I'm always interested in technologies and new things that are coming out. And so I'm always plugged into, the trends and what's coming. And so I feel like in a way, I kind of, I guess I do that just naturally, just by my own instincts. But I feel like anybody could do it. I mean, it's not like a special skill that I have. But you definitely need to be like plugged in and like really like nerd out about like, okay, what's coming? Let's dig into that further. And just it's about more of the approach, I'd say.
And so when you say nerd out though, do you think that like you have to really enjoy it to be good at it? Like if you're not excited about that, you're maybe going to struggle a little bit, and you're going to have a harder time than somebody else who really enjoys it. And that's they get juiced up by that.
I think everyone can nerd out about a certain industry that they're passionate about. And so like, for example, like if you love reading books, let's say you love reading business books or whatever, right? Or, it doesn't have to, it can be like fiction books or whatever, but you can still really get into these niche communities and figure out what is missing. And so you can go to that community and do a little bit of research. Like, okay, what are people asking for? Like, what do they want? And then once you have that, you can like kind of build a solution for them and see if people would actually buy it. And so I guess the angle here is like, you have to be interested in the business side of whatever industry you're in. And so if you're a fiction reader, like, you love fiction books, like if you just love reading fiction books, like, I don't think that's going to get you, like, you can't really start a business because you won't be noticing trends. But if you love reading fiction books and you genuinely have a passion for the business side of it, then I think you will see like the different angles of like, oh, what are people, what are they requesting? Like, what do they want? And so I think that's maybe kind of the way to look at it is like, everyone is interested in some kind of industry. Like, people have hobbies, right? Like, you can't not have hobbies unless you're like the most boring person in the world. But like looking at that hobby and seeing the business side of it, I think everyone can do that.
How do you learn that? Like, say someone doesn't have that perspective early on. Do you have any advice for people to how to start thinking like a business owner?
I think it ultimately comes down to looking at objects and processes and seeing how things are done or made in the world and questioning everything. And so, when I started looking at things like, like, for example, why is like a cup like round? Like, I know it's like so simple, but like usually the things that are well designed are things that you don't think about, like how that's designed. And so like, like, why is a toothbrush the way it's designed? It's kind of like it's like a really interesting way of looking at things. But when you start questioning everything, like it's really fascinating to see how much or how poorly the world is designed in a lot of ways. And so that's such an opportunity to go get in there and improve on that, because I just feel like there's so much out in the world that people just take for granted. Like, oh, it's designed this way because it just is. But if you really look at it and dig down, like, you can see that it's not. You can make it a different way, and like that little different way can be what is a differentiator between like, your home run product or whatever. So
I think that's when you start getting into the innovation side, right? I mean, when you start questioning like that and looking at, like you just said, toothbrush, right? Or the cup. I mean, the cup's been around for a gazillion years, but who says there has to be that way, and those kinds of things, right? I love the way you were thinking, and you have like this process kind of a mind, I think, that's going on in there. And I think that's what helps you be successful. I have a question for you, because one of the things that you mentioned earlier, I mean, you work for Repel, you are the, software engineer. So you got a job and it's probably pretty stable or whatever at that particular moment. I think we have on the podcast with people who have W-2s, who have jobs, and now they want to start a career. They want their own thing. They want their own business. They want to take the leap of faith. And that's one of the, I think, hardest things for people to actually take that leap of faith, right? And you've been able to do that. What would you say to that particular person?
Yeah. I think that you've got to be really, really dedicated and committed to whatever you're doing next. And so what I mean by that is, 8 years ago is when I started my first company. And I don't think I realized that this is a pretty long journey, right? And so, really start something that you're really passionate about. I think that's really important. And it takes a lot longer than you think. So a brand, I always say, like, a brand, you have to give it 5 years minimum. And so you can't expect something you start today to have any type of legs even a year from now. It just doesn't, it needs time to grow. It needs time to breathe. And, you got to have the patience to wait that out. Like, I actually see a lot of brands shutting down, like a year, 2 years in, and I feel like it's too early. Like I feel like it was just they were just starting to like get going, and then I hear the base shut down. Like it's a little bit of like I mean it's I just feel like for those who are on the sidelines and looking to make that first jump, just know that it's gonna take a lot longer than you think. And to be honest, you have to have that drive and that hunger. If you don't have that, then honestly, it's gonna be a tough road, I would say. But yeah, I mean, you really have to enjoy what you're doing. That's really the key.
I agree. I mean, and one of the things that you said as an analogy, if you think about it, like kids, babies, right? When we have a baby, try telling the baby, you have your baby, and now tell the baby to start walking and talking in 6 months. It's not going to happen, right? So the baby needs to grow, as an analogy. And I think same way is to a business thing. How do you get the drive?
How do you get the drive? Yeah, great question. I think that's very different for each individual. When I first started, and this has evolved for me as I've grown as an entrepreneur. And so when I first started, like my goal, my drive, I guess, was to literally survive. And like I needed to find a way to make a living. And so that was my drive at the time. But then as the company grew, I started hiring some people, and now, I have my employees' families are relying on me and the company. And so like, when I think about that, it's like, okay, now it's like beyond myself. And so it's no longer, my drive is no longer my own survival. It's like, I got to make sure to take care of these families too. And so your mind starts to shift, and the definition of that kind of has evolved for me. And so now I think more about like impact. And so, what kind of change am I making in the world? How am I serving my customers? This is kind of what drives me now versus in the very beginning when it was about myself and survival.
Man, this is such an important conversation. I'm really glad we're having it. And so what I heard is that, a couple lessons that you've learned over your journey. One is like find something you're passionate about. Two, give it time. You have to have patience. Are there any other big takeaways that you've learned over those past 8 years that our listeners should know or look out for?
Yeah. So I'm assuming that the listeners are not going to be like a venture-backed companies, because that's a whole different path. So if you're bootstrapping something, then cash is really, really important. And so you kind of have to optimize for cash flow even in the beginning. And when you do that, it kind of, I always like to think like cash is kind of like, cash is like oxygen. Like you don't live, like you need oxygen to breathe and to live, but you don't live for cash, right? You live for a higher purpose. And so I feel like when you start a company, you kind of, cash is on your mind, but then you also want to evolve out of that and make sure you hit the values that you want to, you want to have the values that attract customers to your brand and also employees to your brand. And so when you have strong values, that actually becomes a differentiation factor, and that helps you stand out in the market. And so, I definitely think that, as you start and start thinking about starting a business, you don't want to be just another, company that does like you need to be, I mean, you can still get into that industry if you're really passionate about it, but you need to have a different angle. And that different angle can be something, as simple as like, I'm really passionate about giving back to some kind of cause or whatever. And so like maybe donate some profits to that, or, something that is a little bit more, the human side of it, so it's not just a business looking to make as much money as possible.
And you're sharing those values publicly so people can resonate with them?
Yeah, exactly. So for example, for GrowthJet, like, the environment is a big part of what we do. So, we're climate neutral certified. So we offset our carbon footprint for 2020, 2021, and 2022. And so we get a lot of clients who believe in those values. And so we're not the cheapest option that they can have, but they believe in that same value. And so we attract those brands. And so the brands who are looking for, the cheapest rock bottom prices, like we don't get those clients. and they go somewhere else where they can get those, whatever those, because their values are different. And so, and so we also like attract employees that are passionate about that. And so it kind of like, it's like the way I like to look at it is like a business ecosystem. And so you want to make sure your values are infused at each point in that ecosystem. And so when you do that, it's such a better way of doing business, because like your partnerships will be a lot better because the people that you work with are, they also have the right value. And then that will attract the right employees. The right employees with the right mindset is going to attract the right customers. And so it's like this like cycle. And those awesome. Customers are to refer other clients, they're happy, to like-minded, a similar value company. And so it's like this like ecosystem of like, of people of this environment. And you can't really have that unless you have values that you can like, this is who we are. We stand by this. If you're not cool with this, then go find your own world or your own ecosystem. But this is who we are,
Man, this is an awesome conversation. And I know we're out of time here, but I just can't, man, you're a smart man, and I love what you've done. And so tell people about your podcast though, real quick. We got First Class Founders, and so where can people find that?
Yeah. So First Class Founders, you can find that on any podcast player you listen to. So Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere else. Or you can visit the website at firstclassfounders.com. And this is my attempt to build like an educational platform for other entrepreneurs. And so I share a lot of lessons that I've learned building, these companies that I've built. And also I have plans to build this out more than just a podcast in the future, but we're just starting with the podcast for now, and we'll see where things go.
Man, it's amazing. I'm sure it's gonna rock it, man. You got what it takes. I'm excited to have you on the show and have our audience benefit from your experience and your knowledge, man. Thanks for being on Life in Your Show.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.
He is a cool dude, man. He very, very sharp, and I love his story, man. And we don't have time to unpack all the lessons here, so let's just cherry pick a few of them here. One of the things I thought that he said was really, interesting is here he is. First of all, you never think of an engineer as an entrepreneur. First of all, that's the first thing. So he broke out of that kind of, box. And he said, basically when you change positions or when you go into different business, you got to kind of let go of that old identity. And he talks about, committing, and it is, it's a side hustle. And then at what point does it become like you are going to make the jump and let go of that old stuff? And you can't just kind of ride the fence the whole time.
Right. I think commitment is a really big thing, especially when think about families, right? And people that know you're a software engineer in his case, and now he goes off and does something on his own. Now it's like that totally paradigm change. Like, what are you doing? Why would you want to do that? Why would, those questions and things like that. So that, confidence in yourself and kind of looking from the perspective of, having this consistency that comes in it, because she had to be consistent many times, he brought up a couple of times. It's so important in order for you to be successful,
Yeah. Well, it's commitment, man. And he said, getting over that he mentioned the identity too, who people think you are, who you think you are. Right. So I thought that was awesome. The other thing I thought was really cool about him that we talked about this is having an eye for things that are missing or broken or confusing, right? He formed this 3PL third-party logistics company based off of his own needs for his business. He's like, gosh, we can't find anybody good, and our stuff's not getting there on time, and so he saw a need in the marketplace, figured out a better way to do it, and he spawned a whole business off of it. And he even had customers, he said, before he even had a website or anything like that, because he saw that and this is how business works, by the way, is you notice something that's not as good as it should be, and you have a better solution for it. And he rocked it out, man.
Yeah, I love the conversation in that particular, because there is some innovation that comes with it, right? Think about it. Why is the cup round? We don't ever ask those kinds of questions,
totally,
especially when they have been around for a while, right? Think about, why is this cup round?
Yep.
Could we alter it different way. And then that's when the paradigm shifts. That's when those innovative products comes out. That's where, like, even think about it right now, as we're recording this, the AI is the big conversation that's happening in these industries, right? So there is somebody disrupting these industries. And when you start doing those kinds of things, that's when you get noticed, I think. And that's when you start making strides in a business where, clients are starting coming in if they're aligning with some idea. Because if you started creating, let's say, triangular cup, are people going to be able to drink from it? Probably not. So how many people are going to be actually doing this, right? So, but the thing is, it takes a lot of guts. That's a big part of it, I think, for him especially. Takes a lot of commitment, consistency, those kinds of things. And and outside of the box thinking. Yeah, man. It was really cool. A couple of my favorite parts of the conversation were when he talked about, sharing your values. Like, he talked about this, this, I believe he called it like a carbon neutral, part of his business, where he, this was a commitment they made. And he said how sharing your values openly not only attracts the right customers, you get the right employees, but it repels the people who aren't a good fit. Like, so you can kind of like really segment your audience based on your values, which is, these customers are going to be so much more loyal to you because you connect with them on a level. It's not just a product. It's not just a widget, but like something inside of them, like a value that or a belief, right? Like, that's really powerful. Yeah, and I think that's huge. We talk about this at the Business Builder events, creating your perfect client, right? Niching it down kind of a thing. So who you actually going after. And values is one of those important aspects. And I think a lot of people are afraid to go and pinpoint that niche down, because what if I'm not serving those clients, right? What if I could have a bigger piece of the pie and things like that? And when you actually, I think when you share your values, like he's talking about, when you niche down, you actually attract those, the rabbit kind of fans, those greatest fans, and you actually start attracting other people as well who are not the best fans because they want to be part of it. Right? Not rabbit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The transcripts are on the back table. Right. Man, and by the way, it's climate neutral. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's not carbon neutral, climate neutral. And so, dude, I love that. It's so powerful. And, I know we don't have time to go through all the things, but one other thing that really struck me when he said this, and I was kind of caught off guard when he did, is like, he talked about, for instance, a buyout and everybody gets paid and they get rich and they kind of go, they go on to the next thing. He's like, I don't really want that. Like, I want to earn it. And it struck me there, like, how many of us really want to work for it and earn it? And how would we feel differently if we were just given it? Like, I think of like, whether it's an inheritance or, we're given something, I don't think we value it as much, man. And so, like, I think it just really struck me that, making that investment of his time, of his energy and really that's to me, that spoke a lot. I thought that was interesting. Well, yeah, because I think you have a lot more buy-in. You have a lot more of your passion, your soul, or whatever into it, as opposed to someone just, giving it to you. Well, man, and I think about that, this is a little bit of a departure from that topic, but like, for instance, Life Inner Coaching, right? Like our mentorship our mastermind program and our coaching program, like there's a financial investment to get into that. And if we gave that away for free, people wouldn't value it, right? Because there's, so I think it's just part of it. Like you really, I thought that was revealing a lot. And just an awesome episode overall, man. So many things we could talk about actually. But yeah, we'll have to have him get back on again for another episode here soon. Hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. We would love for you to leave us a review or a rating, give us a thumbs up, share this. The more you share it, the more the algorithm allows us to show up to more people and we can change more lives together. This is a partnership, you and us, and we're here to just make this world a better place and help people create and live their vision. So we will see you next week, everyone. Take care.